The fluorescent lights in the attorney's office felt too bright, almost interrogating. I'd taken a half day off from the warehouse for this. My shift supervisor wasn't happy. But when your uncle dies, you go to the will reading, even if you know you're not getting anything. My family was already there when I walked in. Mom sat rigid in her chair, diamond earrings catching the light. Dad checked his Rolex for the third time in 2 minutes. My older brother Derek sprawled in his seat like he owned the place, which, knowing Uncle Ray's estate, he probably would soon. Jake. Mom's acknowledgement was cool. You're late. Traffic on the 405, I said, sliding into the only empty chair. Derek smirked. Still driving that '98 Honda? Before I could respond, Martin Chen, Uncle Ray's attorney, cleared his throat. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Thank you all for coming. Raymond Matsuda's passing is a loss to all who knew him. He opened a leather portfolio. Ray was very specific about his wishes. Let's begin. I barely listened as he read through the preliminaries. Uncle Ray, my mother's younger brother, had always been the family oddball. While Mom married into money and Dad built his real estate empire, Ray worked as a high school janitor, 32 years pushing a mop and emptying trash cans at Lincoln High. To my sister, Margaret, Mr. Chen Reed, I leave my collection of first edition poetry books, valued at approximately $45,000. Mom's face remained neutral, but I saw her fingers tighten on her purse. 45 grand was nice, but she'd probably spent that on her last bathroom remodel. To my nephew Derek, I leave my vintage motorcycle, a 1969 Triumph Bonneville, valued at approximately $60,000. Derek's smirk widened into a full grin. Sweet. My stomach tightened. I knew what was coming. The pattern was clear. Mom got something cultured. Derek got something cool. I get whatever scraps were left. Probably Ray's old TV or his beat-up toolbox. To my nephew Jake, Mr. Chen's eyes found mine. I leave the sum of $1. The room went silent for exactly 2 seconds. Then Derek exploded into laughter. $1? Oh man, that's perfect. Raymond must have been quite confused toward the end, Mom said, her voice dripping with pity that felt more like contempt. All those years Jake spent at that house. And this is what it came to. Dad didn't laugh, but I saw the disappointment in his eyes. The same look he'd given me when I dropped out of UCLA, when I chose the warehouse over his real estate firm, when I moved into my cramped studio instead of the condo he'd offered to buy me. Actually, Mr. Chen said quietly, Ray was very clear-minded until the end. He specifically requested that Jake receive this particular dollar bill. He slid an envelope across the desk. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a crisp $1 bill in a protective sleeve and a small note card. Jake, look closely. The answer is in the details. Love always, Uncle Ray. I held the dollar up to the light. It looked ordinary. George Washington's face, the serial number, the green ink. Wait, the serial number, L123456788AA. My pulse quickened. Serial numbers weren't supposed to be in perfect sequence like that. They were randomized for security. This had to be a collector's item. Can I get a photocopy of this? I asked Mr. Chen. Of course. Derek was still chuckling as I left 20 minutes later, the dollar bill safely in my pocket and a copy in my wallet. Don't spend it all in one place, bro. I didn't go back to work. Instead, I drove to Golden State Numismatics in Pasadena, a place I'd Googled in the parking lot. The shop smelled like old paper and possibility. Behind the counter, an elderly man with magnifying glasses perched on his forehead looked up from a coin catalog. Help you? I have a dollar bill. I think it might be special. I slid it across the counter, still in its protective sleeve. He picked it up, his expression neutral. Then his eyebrows rose. He reached for a jeweler's loupe, studying the bill with sudden intensity. Where did you get this? My uncle left it to me. Is it worth something? Son, this is a ladder note. Perfect ascending serial number 1 through 8. In this condition? He turned it over carefully. I'd estimate between $15,000 and $20,000, maybe more at auction. The floor seemed to tilt. 20,000? Could be. But... He looked up at me, his expression curious. Usually, when someone leaves you something like this, there's a reason. Did your uncle collect currency? I don't know. He was a janitor. I didn't think he had money for collecting. Janitor's salary can go far if you're smart about it. And patient. He handed the bill back carefully. You should check if he had more. People who find one rare note usually have others. I drove to Uncle Ray's house in Monterey Park in a daze. Mom had the keys, she was executor, but I knew where he hid the spare. Same place for 20 years, under the third flower pot on the left. The house was exactly as I remembered. Small, neat, smelling faintly of the green tea he always drank. The furniture was old but well-maintained. Everything in its place. I'd spent so many afternoons here as a kid. While Derek was at lacrosse practice and Mom was at her charity galas, I'd ride my bike to Uncle Ray's. He'd make us sandwiches, never anything fancy, just turkey and cheese, and we'd sit on his back porch talking. He never asked about my grades or my future plans. He asked what I was reading, what made me laugh, what I thought about. He treated me like I mattered, not like a project that needed fixing. Your value isn't in what you achieve, Jake, he told me once. I was 16, drowning in my father's expectations. It's in who you are. Remember that. I'd remembered. That's why I'd walked away from the life my parents planned for me. That's why I worked at a warehouse, lived in a studio, drove a beat-up Honda, because I'd rather be happy than impressive. And this was my reward? A dollar bill worth 20 grand? It was generous, sure, but it felt like a riddle I wasn't smart enough to solve. I started searching methodically. Desk drawers, nothing but bills and receipts. Closets, clothes, and boxes of school supplies he'd bought for students who couldn't afford them. Kitchen cabinets, canned goods, and tea. Then I found it. In his bedroom, behind a loose baseboard, I'd helped him repair when I was 19. A small fireproof safe. It was unlocked. Inside, 3 leather-bound journals and a large manila envelope labeled, "For Jake, when you're ready." My hands shook as I opened the first journal. January 15th, 1991. Bought my first ladder note today. $150. The dealer thought I was crazy, but I see the potential. If I'm patient, if I'm smart, I can build something that matters. I flipped through pages of careful records. Purchase dates, prices, authentication certificates. Uncle Ray hadn't been collecting randomly, he'd been investing. Systematically, intelligently. The second journal was more of the same, but the amounts grew larger. By 1998, he was spending thousands on rare currency. The third journal made my chest tight. July 3rd, 2010. Watched Jake today at the house. His father called, demanded he come home for some networking dinner. Jake said no. He stayed to help me fix the fence instead. Margaret called me later, furious. Said, I'm encouraging his laziness. She doesn't understand. The boy isn't lazy, he's looking for something real. Something that matters more than money. He reminds me of myself at that age, before I learned what truly matters. I'm going to make sure he's taken care of. Not with handouts, he wouldn't want that. But with the truth about what wealth really means. I had to stop reading. My eyes were burning. The manila envelope contained certificates of authenticity for 47 rare currency notes, along with a letter in Uncle Ray's careful handwriting. Jake, if you're reading this, you found the safe. Good. That means you remembered the baseboard we fixed together. That means you were paying attention, even to the small things. That's why I chose you. The dollar bill in the will is worth about $20,000. But it's also a key. Use the serial number, loan 2345678A. That's the code to my safe deposit box at Pacific First Bank, box 1234, branch on Atlantic Boulevard. Inside, you'll find the rest of my collection. 47 rare notes, worth approximately $2.3 million total, according to the last appraisal. Some I bought for $200 that are worth $80,000 now. Some I got at estate sales for pennies that turned out to be treasures. Your mother thinks I wasted my life as a janitor. Your father thinks I failed because I never made 6 figures. Derek will probably laugh when he hears what you inherited $1. Let them. I made $48,000 a year, Jake. I lived on $30,000. The rest I invested in rare currency, because I understood something your family doesn't. Real wealth isn't about how much you make. It's about what you do with what you have. It's about patience. It's about finding value where others see nothing. But more importantly, it's about this. I'm not leaving you money. I'm leaving you a choice. You can sell the collection, become a millionaire overnight, prove to your family that you weren't the failure they thought you were, or you can use it the way I did to live free. Free from their expectations, free from the constant pressure to be someone you're not. The janitor job was perfect for me. It paid enough, it left me time to read, to think, to collect these little pieces of paper that everyone else thought were worthless. It let me be myself. You've already made the brave choice once walking away from their plan for your life. Now you get to make it again, with the security of knowing you're taken care of. I'm proud of you, Jake. Not because of what you might achieve, but because of who you are. The kid who helped an old man fix fences, the young man who values time over money, presence over prestige. Whatever you choose, know this, you were never a disappointment to me. You were always exactly enough. Love, Uncle Ray. P.S. Don't tell your mother about the collection until you've made your decision. She'll have opinions. She always does. I sat on Uncle Ray's bed and cried. Not quiet tears full, shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep in my chest. He'd known. All those years, he'd known what my family thought of me, and he'd been building this in the background, this safety net made of patience and paper. The next morning, I went to Pacific First Bank. The manager, a woman named Susan Torres, led me to the safe deposit room. Mr. Matsuda was a wonderful man, she said. He came in once a month like clockwork. Always polite. Always had time to chat. The box was larger than I expected. Inside, carefully organized in protective sleeves, were 47 more bills. Each one had documentation, certificates of authenticity, purchase receipts, appraisal values, a 1,896 Educational Series Silver Certificate, $78,000, a $1,918 $500 Federal Reserve Note, $145,000, a $1,928 $1,000 bill with a star note designation, $210,000, on and on. Uncle Ray's neat handwriting on each sleeve, noting when he'd bought it, what he'd paid, what it meant to him. On the $1,000 bill, he'd written, "Bought this for $1,200 in 1993. Dealer said I was overpaying. He was wrong. Patience payée." I took everything to Mr. Chen's office the next day. "I need to understand something," I said. "Uncle Ray's estate, did he have any other assets?" Mr. Chen pulled out a file. The house, paid off. Worth about $680,000 in today's market. His car, minimal value. Savings account, $12,000. And the items distributed in the will. That's it? That's it. Why? I told him about the currency collection, showed him the appraisal documents. Mr. Chen's eyes widened. 3 millions? Give or take. He lived on a janitor's salary and built this over 32 years. That's extraordinary. It's Uncle Ray. I took a breath. I need your advice. Legally, is this part of the estate? No. The will specified $1 bill, that particular bill. Whatever else you found separately isn't mentioned in the will. It's yours, free and clear. So I don't have to tell my family? Mr. Chen smiled slightly. Not unless you want to. I didn't. Not yet. For 2 weeks, I sat with Uncle Ray's letter. I went to work at the warehouse, came home to my studio, and thought about what wealth really meant. Derek posted the motorcycle on Instagram, bragging about his inheritance from Uncle Ray. Mom listed the poetry books with a rare book dealer for $52,000. Nobody asked about my dollar. I made my decision on a Thursday night, eating leftover Chinese food on my couch. The next day, I called Mr. Chen. "I want to set up a foundation," I said. "The Ray Matsuda Scholarship Fund. For students at Lincoln High who want to go to college but can't afford it. Specifically, for kids whose parents don't understand why they choose education over immediate income. How much are you thinking?" "I'm keeping enough to pay off my car and put a down payment on a small house. Maybe $150,000 total. The rest, just over $2 million, goes into the foundation. I want it to provide full-ride scholarships. Room, board, tuition, books, everything. That's very generous, Jake. It's what Uncle Ray would want. He spent 32 years at that school. He knew those kids. He was one of those kids. What about your family? Will you tell them?" I thought about it. Eventually. But first, I want the foundation up and running, first scholarship awarded. then they can know. It took 3 months to set everything up. The foundation launched in September just as school started. The first scholarship went to Maria Gutierrez, a senior whose parents wanted her to skip college and work at their restaurant. Uncle Ray had written about her in his journal. Brilliant girl. Wants to be an engineer. Family doesn't understand. I bought her a graphing calculator last week. Maria would get $40,000 a year for 4 years. Full ride to Cal Poly. I invited my family to the scholarship ceremony at Lincoln High. Why are we here? Mom asked, eyeing the modest auditorium with barely concealed disdain. You'll see. Principal Anderson spoke first, talking about Uncle Ray's 32 years of service. How he'd known every student by name. How he'd slipped lunches to kids who couldn't afford them. How he'd stayed late to help with school plays, sports practices, science fairs. Ray Matsuda was the heart of this school, she said. And today, his legacy continues. Then, she introduced me. I walked to the podium, my heart hammering. When Uncle Ray died, he left me $1 in his will. A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. They knew the story. Small school, news travels fast. My family thought it was a joke, maybe even an insult. I saw Mom shift uncomfortably, but Uncle Ray never did anything without purpose. That dollar bill was a ladder note, a collector's item worth about $20,000. It was also a clue to something bigger. Derek's smirk had vanished. Dad leaned forward. Uncle Ray spent 32 years working here as a janitor, making $48,000 a year. He lived simply, invested wisely, and built a collection of rare currency worth approximately $2.3 million. Mom's hand went to her mouth. He left it all to me. Not because I was special, but because he knew I'd understand what he was really trying to teach. That wealth isn't about money. It's about time, about values, about what you choose to do with what you have. I looked at Maria, sitting in the front row with her parents. So today, I'm announcing the Ray Matsuda Scholarship Fund. Over $2 million, providing full-ride scholarships to Lincoln High students who want to pursue education but face financial or family barriers. Students like Maria Gutierrez, our first recipient. The auditorium erupted in applause. Maria was crying. Her mother was crying. Half the teachers were crying. I glanced at my family. Mom's face was pale. Derek looked stunned. Dad's expression was unreadable. After the ceremony, Mom cornered me in the parking lot. $2 million, Jake? And you're giving it away. It's what Uncle Ray wanted. He wanted you to have security. To have a future. I have security. I kept enough to buy a house, pay off my debts. The rest is doing more good this way. You could have started a business, invested it, made something of yourself. I already am something, Mom. I kept my voice gentle. I'm someone who values what Uncle Ray valued. That's enough for me. Derek walked over, hands in his pockets. That was really cool, man. What you did in there. Thanks. I sold the motorcycle, he said quietly. Got 60 grand for it. I was going to buy a Porsche. He paused. I think I'm going to donate half to your foundation instead. If that's okay. I stared at him. Really? Uncle Ray left me that bike for a reason, right? Maybe this is the reason. Over the next few months, things shifted. Derek donated $30,000 to the foundation and started volunteering at Lincoln High, teaching a financial literacy class. Mom sold the poetry collection and contributed $25,000. In Ray's memory, she said stiffly, but I could see something had changed in her eyes when she looked at me. Dad was the last holdout. Then one day, he showed up at my new house, a modest 3-bedroom in Alhambra, nothing fancy but mine. I've been thinking about what you said, he told me. About wealth. About values. Yeah? I built my business because I wanted to prove something. To my father, to myself, to everyone who said I couldn't. And I did prove it. But somewhere along the way, I forgot to ask if it made me happy. He looked around my small living room, at the secondhand furniture, the books on shelves made from cinder blocks and pine boards. You look happy, Jake. Really happy. When's the last time I looked like that? I didn't have an answer. Your uncle was a smart man, Dad said. Smarter than I gave him credit for. He knew what mattered. He did. So did you. And I'm sorry it took me this long to see it. We talked for 3 hours that night. Really talked. Maybe for the first time in my adult life. I still work at the warehouse. Still drive my Honda well. I upgraded to a 2010 model, but close enough. I live in my modest house and eat modest meals and wear jeans that cost $30. But I also go to Lincoln High once a month to meet with scholarship recipients. I hear their stories, their dreams, their struggles. I see Uncle Ray in every one of them, that hunger for something real, that willingness to choose meaning over money. The foundation has grown. We've given out 12 scholarships so far. Derek's financial literacy class has 50 students. Mom started a book club for scholarship recipients, using Uncle Ray's poetry collection as the foundation. Last week, I got a letter from Maria. She's thriving at Cal Poly, studying mechanical engineering, top of her class. Your uncle saved my life, she wrote. Not with money, with belief. With the message that my dreams mattered. Thank you for continuing that message. I keep Uncle Ray's letter in my wallet, next to a photocopy of that latter note. When my old doubts creep in, when I wonder if I should have kept more money, done more with it, been more like my family expected, I read his words. You were never a disappointment to me. You were always exactly enough. Uncle Ray left me more than rare currency. He left me permission to be myself, to value what I value, to build wealth the way he did not in bank accounts, but in time spent well, in relationships that matter, in the quiet satisfaction of knowing you lived according to your own definition of success. That's worth more than $2.3 million. That's worth everything,